And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. And as we were discussing earlier, that name is still somewhat temporary. We're just calling it that for the time being because that is the name of the YouTube channel, abbreviated, that we're actually uploading this to for the time being. Figuring that eventually, as we go through these, kind of a theme or an idea will come out that just really suits it. For the time being, that's what we're called. This is episode 2 of the complete podcast. We've done 3 test cases, 1 full episode now, which is up as of the time you're hearing this. Would have gone up the Saturday before you hear this. And yeah, welcome back.
Yeah, honestly, the numbering system is a flipping nightmare.
It is. That's something else that we need to work on, because right now I think episode 1, 2, and 3 are all test cases. The first full episode was actually episode 4, but then the segments are 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3.
Yeah, the first 3 were like alpha, and now we're in... Wait, are we in full release now? I suppose we are.
We are. Full release. The first full release. This is the second full release.
Yep. Part 1.
Yeah, exactly.
or if you're listening to it on Saturday, just the full episode 2.
Good God. Yeah, that's true. If you're listening to this on Monday, this is segment 1 of the second podcast. If you're listening to this on Saturday, then this is the complete second podcast. So without us rambling on too much more in the intro, I'm going to bring us right into topics, our first segment. And I have one that I thought it might only take us a little bit, but I think we could actually go on for quite a bit with this topic. And that's, the initial idea I had with it was, with the advent of digital downloads for games and things like that, there's become this kind of expectation that it'll be patched on the first day. And it's kind of something that people have begun to expect because these games do take vast amounts of time. But there's recently been a few cases of controversy because games are being patched not to fix glitches or to correct things, but being patched to actually change the game. And I'm not talking about live service games like Overwatch or League or things. Those are expected to change on a regular basis. But this is single player games, and they're modifying bits of the story and things like that after the game has been released.
So there's definitely, I think I see this more with indie games, where I've played through the game and I think, wow, that was a great game. They obviously need to fix some things, but because there's only one person creating it and they want to keep creating new stuff, they don't often spend the time to go back and fix the basic things that were broken, because it's still playable, but they have to devote their man hours to adding new content, because that's what the community is generally shouting for, as opposed to the smaller community who are getting kind of punked out of the gameplay because of something that may be game breaking or may just be irritating to look at.
I see what you're saying there. I'm thinking the thing that made me think of this. There was recently a bit of a controversy, and I won't go into what it actually was, but with the release of Halo ODST, because they've released Master Chief Collection on PC, and they're releasing each game kind of in bits, in chronological order. So
what's ODST stand for?
Orbital Drop Shock Troopers. They're essentially Marines from the Halo, Special Forces Marines from the Halo universe.
Yeah.
So called because they drop in these individual pods from orbit to make landfall on a planet.
They've got drop pods from Warhammer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So that game, they actually were removing content from the game because of some other controversy. Again, I don't want to get into it on the podcast, but that's what made me think of this, because I could see why they removed the thing that they did, but it kind of opens the door. What's to stop? So, say I'm gonna use an example. There's a PlayStation 2 game, say,
Hmm.
and you've downloaded it on the PlayStation Network onto the PlayStation 4, and you're playing it on there. You remember the old like single player experience, but maybe they don't like something that was done in the original game, and for either for creative reasons or cultural reasons, they either remove it or alter it altogether, changing dialogue, changing like
Right. Is this controversy about someone getting offended?
yes.
Okay,
But
right. Oh, I
but
don't need to go
that
into that then.
that was the reason why I first started thinking about this. But even from like a wider, like not just somebody getting offended, but it could be for creative reasons too. Like somebody has released this game, it's single player, and the studio that made the game, say 10 years down the line, it's now digital content. They don't sell the physical copies anymore. They decide that they didn't like something they did creatively in the game 10 years ago, and they decide to change it. Well, now
Okay.
the original version of the game is no longer available, and that's something that I didn't like the idea of.
Right. Yeah, well, they can't really put out two different versions of the game, one being like, ah, have you downloaded the Snowflake edition or the classic?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I don't know what the problem is, so that could be very mean, and I apologize.
No, no, no.
But
That's perfectly, but that's reasonable. That was where my mind was going.
yeah, no, it's they have to appeal to the. I mean, the people who, such as yourself, who were not offended by it,
Hmm.
would not are not particularly offended by the fact that something has been taken out of the game. It's just a it's a very political view, and we shouldn't go into politics on this. But yeah, they're just appealing to the mass crowds.
Right. And but
They don't
my
want to get sued.
my problem with it is like there's a lot of old games that I own physical copies of that I really like. You know, the story, the gameplay, you know, what have you,
Yeah.
like warts and all. But
Hmm.
what if, like in the future, and it doesn't have to be because someone got offended. It doesn't have to be for political reasons. It could be just they make a creative decision when they re-release the game that they want to do it differently. So now, unless you own that original physical copy, there is no way for you to play the game as it originally was. You just have to play through this new experience. Um, and I kind of thought
Yeah.
about it.
I
It
mean, you've
goes
got the original hard copy, so you can play it through anyway, can't you?
well, not this game. Well, yeah, yeah. If we're talking about Halo specifically, yeah. But I'm looking
Yeah.
at my Steam library. There's tons of games on there that physical copies don't even exist necessarily. And
Right.
so it's kind of at the Steam has the ability to go back to previous patches, which is nice.
Hmm.
But you can't do that on, say, the Xbox or the PlayStation. So if
Yeah.
you have these digital copies, and that was where my mind started with this idea, but then I started thinking, well, the same could technically be true for movies too, because more and more people aren't buying physical copies of movies, DVDs.
No.
They're buying digital copies on um, like Amazon, or they're watching them on Netflix, or they're downloading them off whatever Disney's platform is. Everybody has their own streaming platform now,
Yeah.
but in theory, the same thing could happen there. And it again, it doesn't have to be for somebody getting offended. It could be a creative decision, like Disney releases a new animated, one of their musical kind of
Oh.
movies, right?
Yeah.
And then
Right.
they, for whatever reason, 5 years down the line, they're like, yeah, we didn't like this scene, so they do a new cut of it, and the old one just doesn't exist anymore. And so
Right.
my problem is, and maybe this is something that's kind of only a concern for me. I like seeing, like, if I've had, like, I'm a chronic rewatcher and rereader and replayer. Like, I go back to old movies, games, and books all the time,
Hmm.
and I think it annoys me. It worries me that that original experience that I like going back and re-experiencing just might be gone at the whim of somebody, like, outside my control.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it does sometimes worry me a bit how some companies obviously take things harder than others. Like, a company might take something down because they think it's not PC enough, but then look at freaking Game of Thrones.
I haven't
they had
actually watched the series.
no, but like you've seen the first series, haven't you?
I saw the first two episodes, but I've read all of the books several times.
Right. Yeah. But the things they get away with on that, like, surely that means
Oh,
that we should be kind of pushing the boundaries, not drawing them back in.
but that's
Um,
HBO. Like HBO, if an HBO series doesn't have gratuitous like nudity and violence, then it's not HBO.
right. Okay. I don't really know what goes on HBO because I was over here. But yeah, what you were saying earlier about everything being bought online.
Mm,
The city I live in used to have like two or three game shops. Game is the big computer game industry in this country.
yeah.
Um, and just recently, I think the last one's just disappeared now because no one buys physical games anymore.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I'm that one exception because I do. I if I
yeah,
can, so if I can, I always buy a physical copy because and the reason I do that is because of this. This is kind of where I'm leading to with this topic, is that when you buy a digital copy, unless it's DRM free, you don't actually own it. Like it's essentially just leased to you because if
right.
like so I own that movie we've been trying to watch forever on Amazon Prime,
Yeah,
um
well, you can't
Passengers.
watch it.
Yeah, exactly, we can't watch it because fuck you Amazon, you still black out your screen if you try to like watch a movie with friends. um
Still waiting on that Netflix sponsorship, by the way.
yeah, exactly, come on Netflix, hit us up. But essentially, if I own that movie Passengers on there, like I actually bought the digital edition. But if Amazon's servers ever shut down, I know it doesn't really seem that likely. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. But if they ever
Yeah.
if their servers ever shut down, if they decide we're shuttering the Prime service because it just doesn't make us money anymore, all of that's gone. Like you just don't have that movie anymore.
Hmm.
So I'm essentially leasing it with the only security being that Amazon is promising they'll be around for the rest of my life for me to keep watching it.
Yeah, it's a bit. You don't really want to be relying on others for
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
It's the same thing with Steam. Like you've bought the games on there, they're all digital, but if Steam
I've
ever
got
shuts
so
its doors,
many games.
yeah, if Steam ever
Yeah,
shuts its doors, you don't have those games anymore.
yeah, that is a worrying thought, but at the same time, it's so big. It's one of those things where you're like, the Titanic, it can't sink.
Yeah, it's too big to fail.
Yeah, um, yeah, it's a slight worry, but at the same time, if I lost all my games tomorrow, yes, it would be disheartening. Yes, I would lose essentially a lot of money, but at the same time, these games I've had for like over 5 years, and I've kind of had my enjoyment of them. So if I did lose
Yeah.
them tomorrow, I'd be upset. I would not be in tears though.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of at the same spot where like if I think about how I would actually react, I would be very angry and very upset at the onset, but then after like a few minutes I'd be like, well, I guess I'll just go outside and enjoy the sunshine. And I
Are you
have
kidding me? I'd just be like, right, next platform to buy games from.
well, if it ever actually happened to Steam, I think I would swear off buying digital games in general, or be
Right.
extremely cautious about it from that point on. That's why
Yeah, just wait for the free games from Epic Games instead.
yeah, they've been. I'm kind of curious what the hell their business model is because they've been giving
Right?
away some brand new, like high tier games. When that stuff starts to happen, I get suspicious. Like, what are you planning, Epic?
Do they do Ubisoft games? Is that no? You played this Ubisoft.
Yeah, they've got their own
That's it,
platform.
Epic Games have some big franchise, don't they, supporting them?
Mm,
Or am I wrong? I don't know.
I mean, they're the ones that make Fortnite.
Right, yeah. Oh, the big fight between
Oh yeah, between it.
Fortnite and Apple.
Actually, you know what?
Have
That's
we talked about this before?
no, we haven't. I think let's transition into that because I think we've exhausted this topic. Just one last point on that.
Go for it.
Shout out to because we were talking about it earlier with Jesse. Is the GOG, good old games, grand old games, whatever the hell they're called. They they are one of the only platforms that when you buy games on their site, it's, excuse me, mostly it's DRM free, which digital rights management, for anyone that doesn't know that acronym. So if you buy a digital copy there, as long as you have the files of that game, you can essentially, even if their site goes down tomorrow, if you have the files for that game, you can put it on any computer that you own. So you don't need their servers to play the games. And I love that. So shout out to them, because they're doing things pretty well, of the platforms out there.
Just took a look at the actual website, and it's got a bunch of stuff saying 90% off, and it looks like it's got The Witcher 90% off, which is very surprising. I'm confused.
It's actually owned by the people who make the Witcher games, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Because they're the ones making Cyberpunk 2077, that new game I'm excited about.
Right.
And they kind of put out just, I can't remember, it was on their Twitter or their website or something, and they're like, hey, if you buy it on GOG, if enough people pre-order it on GOG and pay up front, it's DRM free. If enough people do it, we'll add even more bonuses to the game, like legit new feature. Like, essentially they were treating it like a Kickstarter, and a bunch of people did, and they added in stuff to the game. I really like that company. What the hell are they called? Red something? The people who, look it up, people who make The Witcher.
Right.
But yeah, that was the last point I wanted to say on this topic. But then we can move into what you were just saying there.
What was I saying again?
We were talking about the thing between Apple and Epic,
yes.
Epic. Yeah.
Apple and Epic Games. I've heard briefly about it. Something about Fortnite screwed over Apple, and so they started putting hates Apple stuff in their game.
It dates back. I've been following this since it started, because whenever these I don't know, slug matches between big companies happen, they're usually pretty entertaining. So what happened was Epic had their application, which allowed for purchases, like in-game purchases for Fortnite and a few of their other games, hosted on the Google Play Store and on Apple. And when people make purchases for their games on those sites, Apple or Google gets a cut of the money. So say somebody buys, like, I don't know what the fuck the currency is called in that, but they buy 1,000 points of Fortnite bucks, whatever the hell they are.
Yeah.
And it costs them $10. That means Apple or Google, whoever owns it, whatever platform it is, gets $3, and the rest goes to Epic. Now, Epic decided to be a little bit cheeky and put a link in their app that goes not to one of their payment processors, but a third-party payment processor that gave Epic a bigger cut. And you would get a bonus amount of whatever the in-game currency is. So Epic would get more money, and the players liked it because they would get a lower price.
Yeah, bonus.
Yeah. So say you get the 1,000, but now it's $9, but Epic gets 8 instead of 7. Apple didn't like this, so they banned all of Epic's content from the iTunes or the iStore, whatever the hell it's called. And Epic then responded by putting essentially like propaganda videos in Fortnite, just trashing Apple. They even did a tournament where they were giving away products for Apple's competitors for grand prizes, and giving away skins as runner-up prizes that were just mocking Apple.
Wow.
And I think at the
they
same
should have had a rotten Apple costume that you could wear.
It's something like that, actually. I can't remember what it was called. It was the sad Apple skin or something, or bad Apple skin. I think that's what it was called.
Oh, or just Steve Jobs, the polo neck look.
I think that might go a little bit too far, though, because the guy's dead.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, but yeah.
I mean,
he is the front runner. He is what represents Apple.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's been kind of a row going on between them, lawsuits, and they also had, I believe, Microsoft kind of chimed in an official capacity and kind of endorsed Epic's side of the argument. And I'm not really sure why, but anyway, it's been just an absolute... you've watched this is gonna sound like a non sequitur. Believe me, it fits. You've watched like Monty Python, right? The
Yeah.
flying circus. There's a
No,
scene.
not that one. Not that one.
Okay, well it's a show. There's
Yeah.
a skit that they do in it where they say they're going to reenact some kind of historical event, and every single time, it's just a bunch of old ladies slapping each other with handbags in the mud.
Right.
Every single historical event they say they're going to. So the reason I'm bringing that is essentially what this is turned into. You've got Google
Yeah.
and Apple on one
Like,
side against Epic, and now Microsoft is chiming in and kind of on Epic's side.
yeah. So I guess they're getting more business now that Apple's out.
I
The
think
eternal enemies.
I think that's kind of what it comes down to. Microsoft is just taking the opportunity to give some pot shots at Apple.
Yeah. I mean, Microsoft and Apple are kind of like America and Russia during the Cold War. They're fighting through other little countries.
That's actually, yeah, it's a bunch of proxy wars.
Yeah, just trying to spread communism. Or,
Yes, communism.
yeah.
It's always interesting when something like this happens because in a sense there's kind of a messed up element because in a sense Epic is propagandizing and bribing children.
Hmm.
But at the same time, those stores tend to have like, I mean, it's a 30% sounds like a big cut, but I'm pretty sure it's the industry standard for how much like those payment processors take off the top.
Right.
I think that's. I mean, I'm pretty sure Steam takes more than that when people sell games on their site. I think.
I have no idea. I don't. I'm a blind fool to these things. I just see a good deal and I go for it.
The financing and economic element to all of this is something that I find personally fascinating. I always like reading into it, but I feel like if we get into that here, we're just going to bore everyone that's listening. So that's really the top.
Returning to the whole.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was gonna say return to the whole downloading thing there. One thing that I do, well, it's a boon and a curse. So, with these Steam games, not all of them are released as a hard copy. It feels like a gamble every time you buy a game of whether the company that made it are going to continue working on it or go to a new project.
Yeah, that's no, go on.
Okay, I was going to say that classic one that we've played quite a bit, Slay the Spire.
Yeah.
I thought there was going to be a lot more progress on that done a lot quicker. And I ended up waiting so long that when they did come out with more stuff for it, it just didn't interest me anymore. It'd been too long. And yeah, but then other games that, in fact, indie games, again, I gotta stop bringing them up, with very much smaller groups of people who have released a lot more, a lot sooner. Whether that's because it's possibly like less art and things that have gone into it, or if it's because multiplayer functionality takes a lot longer to implement. But I mean, how long did we wait for Golf with Your Friends to have
the low letter?
Yeah, we waited literally years for that to come out, and by the time it did, we were so done with it. At least I was.
Yeah, for those that don't know listening, Golf with Your Friends is a mini golf like PC game, and we played the hell out of it when it first came out.
Yeah.
But the content coming out for it, so Steam has this thing called early release, and typically it's a game that's still in development, but it's finished enough that Steam allows it to be put on their store, so as a way for the developer to gather money and continue funding the progress in the game. But what Blue's saying here, there's a varying degree of progress that gets made. Some, like Golf with Your Friends, they have this big plan, but then the content gets kind of drip fed out instead of it coming at a steady rate. And some games make good progress, and some games do that.
Yeah, and they said like not long after it was released that there was level editors coming soon, and that's why They gave us hope,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then they tore it away from us, as opposed to just not mentioning it and saying no, no, no. Yes, we're now going to come out with it.
That
That would have been better.
that actually reminds me. So League of Legends, right? There's a it's ever since the very I think it was the second season of the game,
Mm.
which would have been 2011 or so. They were promising a replay feature, and it didn't come out for like they were like, oh yeah, it's going to be coming soon, and it didn't come out for like another 4 or 5 years. It may have actually been longer than that,
Right.
but it took quite a long time for it to actually show up. And that's again, it's not an indie game, which gives them less of an excuse. At least the indie developers can say, well, we only have 3 people working on this thing, and they have day jobs or something like that. They can go, okay,
Yeah.
it's maybe forgivable, but this is a big studio.
Yeah. The I think a company that's just done that fairly recently is Rainbow Six Siege. They've now got if you see any of the competitive games nowadays, there's like a top-down view of the building where the roof is obviously vanished, and you
Oh,
can see everyone walking around, and it looks really cool.
that is actually really cool. I didn't realize they'd added that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure. Maybe I just dreamed it, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty sure that's the case.
Fact check us here.
Yeah, I don't know if you can report people posthumously through that feature because I
Oh
think
yeah,
do
you
many people
saying
cheat on that?
I mean, they do a pretty good job, like preventing people from hacking and cheating in that game. It seems like,
Yeah, I can't now. I think about it, I can't generally.
yeah,
I mean, obviously, I have seen the odd cheat, but as a rule, I've seen more cheats in Fall Guys, which I've only been playing for about a week now, than I've ever seen in Rainbow Six Siege, which I've been playing for years.
yeah, yeah. That's true. I can't go back to how petty do you have to be to cheat at Fall Guys?
Oh, it's right. So this is like only just happened like an hour ago. Obviously you were there, Kaiser,
Oh yeah.
and we were like midway through a game. I was playing the football one where you have to kick it in the other person's goal. I suddenly realised that not just one, but 2 of my team of 5 were flying, and really obviously.
At least if you're
Uh,
gonna cheat, be a little more subtle about it.
and so I was just like, you know what? Heck no. Went on to the other team, tried to get own goals. There's no reporting system. I'm aggravated by that game right now. Sorry, I don't mean to raise my voice.
And again, but just I feel like I have to do this because I keep forgetting like we know what these things are, but not everyone listening necessarily does. Fall Guys being a very new like think like a party kind of game where there's a bunch of little mini games. You play as this tiny little wobbling figure who is constantly getting knocked over and can jump and dive, and that's about it. And so it
Yeah,
has all these
think of
contrived
Mario
features.
Party without the board, so it's just mini games, and instead of a recognizable character like Mario, you're just a bean.
Yeah, that's true.
Um,
A
it's very
bean,
colorful, great for kids.
yeah, yeah, a bean with a bunch of random optional hats and pants.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Oh, do they have a sombrero? I would love a sombrero.
there
In that.
probably is
Sorry.
a sombrero. We're coming up on the end of this segment. I just want to bring it back to the original topic for one last point because we talked about mostly about games, a bit about movies, and this whole like digital download thing. But I think one other thing that maybe is kind of neglected today is books. I mean,
Mm.
Kindle and Audible basically have very close to a monopoly on the digital book and audiobook market. So
Yeah.
if for whatever reason Amazon decides, we don't want this book on our platform, or this book needs to be, edited in such and such a way to be
I'd
on our
be
platform.
surprised if they ever did that though, because
They
if
have.
you've seen some of the books that are on there,
They have actually done it.
really, what, like the
I,
Communist Manifesto or something?
no, that's on there.
No,
Um,
well, that's okay then.
Yeah, no, they like that guy. No, but if you go back to I can't remember this was back in 2018 or 2017, so I don't remember what book it was. But there was this big controversy because it was a politician in Europe had put up a book, and he had some, let's say, questionable politics, but at least maybe it's because it was Europe and not the U.S., but like the guy has a right to put up whatever he wants. He wants to write a book, he can write a book. Go for it. And the idea of, in the same way as Steam and Disney or Netflix or Amazon making kind of unilateral decisions to have or not have certain movies or games or whatever go up there, or have some level of control over what's in those movies or games.
Yeah.
It's worrying that you have something like Amazon, which has that ability to kind of essentially just come down from the mountain on high and say, you will not put your book on our platform.
Yeah.
It's not technically a violation of anything, because there are other platforms, but they have sort of a soft monopoly.
Yeah, it's always like, do you, like, to take it to an extreme, if the KKK would put a book on Audible, I could understand why people would want it taken down.
Right.
If you take that down, you've got to take a whole bunch of other things down.
Right. There's a lot of...
And you have to decide where the line is.
Exactly. And if you go back to, like... If you go back far enough, there are definitely historical books that are, have reprehensible content. But you really... If you don't like it being on the platform, just give it a 1-star review. Don't buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, but they have... Oh. So, I sound frustrated, but at the time it was gosh darn hilarious. I laughed my ass off. They have, like, romance novels, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where it's, like, dinosaur romance. And I'm like, what? Like, I was watching a YouTube video and someone was like, look at this weird shit you can get on Audible. And I was like, that can't be real.
Oh my
There's
God.
Series upon series upon series of, like, dinosaur romance, werewolf romance. I can understand a bit more because of, like, Twilight and stuff. It's still weird to me.
Oh my God.
Like, what? They're really, like, you know what I mean by a B movie, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so they're like punny dinosaur pun romance novels with B movie kind of images on the front, and I'm like, oh my God. Why is this up here when some classic books I've wanted
aren't
listened to aren't? Yeah. So I'm wondering if that's... I don't know how a book gets put up on here. Does it have to be the original writer that goes to Audible and says, I want my book up here? Or is it...
Oh my God.
I don't know. I assume so.
I just got an idea for a future segment 3.
Based on dinosaur romance? I hope not.
I'm thinking maybe we we both listen to a segment of some really shitty audiobook.
Oh my God.
And then talk about
that
it.
sounds fun.
It doesn't necessarily have to be dinosaur romance, but something that neither of us would ever normally listen to.
Well, I'm sure we'll hear some opinions from this anyway, so if anyone does have an opinion and they around us, then give us a shout.
Alright, so let's wrap up the first segment there. We're actually close to our target time here. We're at 33 minutes.
Excellent.
But yeah, so
that's like the closest we've ever come.
I know. Normally we look and it's like, holy crap, we're at 40 minutes and we weren't even thinking about it.
Now we just have to STFU and get out.
Yeah. So just to do a quick outro, thank you for listening. If you're listening on Monday, this is going to be segment 1, and this will be where the podcast ends. But if you're listening on Saturday, then there'll be a brief intermission, and you'll hear us once again. Thank you for listening, and we'll either see you in a few days or in a few minutes.